After analyzing the 10 most impressive teams this season, I decided to look into the most underwhelming clubs for a change. Whether you come here to laugh at the expense of your rivals, or to cry because of how pathetic your team was this year, join me as I look into the top 10 most disappointing teams of the season. Number 10, Liverpool. Guess who's back to Europa League? Liverpool. After winning the Community Shield, I saw so many different people saying that Haaland would flop and Darwin Núñez would be this season's MVP. Right. But I won't be too harsh on him, since the Reds' biggest problem this season was undoubtedly the midfield. Liverpool chose to invest hard on their forwards, but neglected the midfield area, bringing only an injury-ridden Arthur. Despite their lack of investment, I believe very few people would have tipped them to miss out on Champions League qualification and to be eliminated from the same competition so early on. I'm very interested to see what follows this season at Anfield. Will world-class players still come to Liverpool, knowing that their European nights will be on Thursdays? Number 9, Real Madrid. I was wondering if I should include them here or not, but after being eliminated by City in the Champions League and losing the La Liga title to Barcelona by such a whopping margin, it would be ridiculous not to. Don't get me wrong, almost any team that wins the Clubs World Cup and goes to the semi-finals of the Champions League can consider that a good season. But Real Madrid isn't any team. When you're a merengue, you expect your team to either win the league, the Champions League, or both. If that doesn't happen, the season has to be considered a failure. In my opinion, Real has to start thinking about replacing their biggest stars while they're still performing at a decent level. When you look at Benzema, Modric, and even Kroos, for how long do you think they'll be world class? It's time to usher in a new era at the Bernabeu. And speaking of Real Madrid legends, I have to bring Cristiano's new club, Al Nassr. By no means I'm saying that Cristiano is the culprit of Al Nassr's disappointing season, I just think that he hasn't been utilized as well as he should have. I don't think most rational football fans would expect Al Nassr to win the Saudi League by a whopping margin just because CR7 was there, but I would assume that they would at least clinch a title or the cup. Especially considering that their team, even before Ronaldo arrived, is way above the competition in Saudi Arabia. To make it worse, the team that could potentially win the league ahead of Al Nassr is Al Ittihad, and they're only the 5th best squad in the country. With 3 matches left to play at the time I'm making this video, let's see if Al Nassr can turn their fortunes around. Number 7, Leicester City. If Leicester do go down, it will be a sad day for many football fans. From doing the unthinkable in 2016 and solidifying themselves as a top English club with their FA Cup win, to now playing with no passion and full of debts, this season has been nothing short of a huge fall from grace by the Foxes. Leicester have made terrible transfer deals in the last couple of years, keeping Tielemans when they could have sold them at the peak of his market value, gave new contracts with wage increases to players who didn't return their investment, and failed to replace one of their best players of all time. All of that adding up to the relaxed attitude that the players and both managers exuded throughout the year, leads me to think that unless a miracle happens again in Craven Cottage, the Foxes will go down. Number 6, AC Milan. After 11 long years away from glory, AC Milan conquered Serie A in the past season. But their title defense, or attempt at doing so, has been horrible to say the least. The Rossoneri never really challenged for the title this year, and unless Lazio or Inter flop big time, they will return to Thursday night football. Maldini doesn't seem too worried, as he strongly believes in building a young squad guided by experienced players, but I believe AC Milan would benefit from adding another star in this transfer window. They rely way too much on Rafael Leão, and that shows when he's injured or just having an uninspired performance. We can take as a positive thing that they made it all the way to the UCL semi-finals, but that doesn't make it a less disappointing season. It's not like they faced incredible sides on the way to the semis, and in a way, I believe that luck played a big role in their successful Champions League campaign. Number 5, Valencia. Gone are the days when Valencia were one of La Liga's powers, challenging for the title with the likes of Barcelona and Real Madrid. The early 2000s was a magical period for Loche, with 2 Spanish titles and UEFA Cup success, so this year's relegation battle must be a sobering experience for those connected to the fallen Valencian giants. At the time I'm making this video, Valencia are stuck in the most intense relegation battle in Europe, just 5 points above safety, having spent the majority of this season on the relegation spots. It might not be the same vintage of years gone by with the likes of David Villa, David Silva or Juan Mata, but the current crop still boasts talents like Musa and Guillamon, yet they're barely separated from the trapdoor into the second tier right now. Number 4, Flamengo. The most popular club in South America isn't doing well at all, and the beginning of this year they were a complete joke. They lost 3 titles in 1 month, lost against small teams, all of that despite boasting one of the best group of players in the entire continent. Just a couple years ago, under the guidance of Jorge Jesus, they were South America's biggest hope to challenge the European super clubs in the Clubs World Cup, but now it feels like they can even challenge their own Brazilian rivals. And with an aging squad, I can only see them getting worse and worse. Number 3, Ajax. After Ten Hag's departure for Man United, you could probably guess that Ajax would struggle a bit unless a new coach found a lot of confidence with a great start to this year's campaign. Which actually happened, but after being beaten by AZ Alkmaar in the league, it felt like Ajax's confidence never came back. Besides, Alfred Schreuder never seemed to truly gain the players' trust, and there were several instances where his man management skills were questioned, especially with the departure of Blind. Eventually, I think he became the new head coach, but it didn't change much. Ajax were eliminated in the Europa League playoff after a ridiculous display in the Champions League, lost a Dutch Cup to PSV, and will fight tooth and nails until the end of the season to at least guarantee Europa League football next year. Number 2, PSG. It doesn't matter if they win Ligue 1 this season. It simply isn't a big achievement when you have a €700 million market value difference to the league's second place. Besides, this fan turmoil that they're facing will not go unnoticed, and I believe they'll have trouble attracting the world's biggest superstars after the way that PSG fans treated Neymar and Messi. By no means I'm defending the players, but the club's atmosphere reeks of toxicity, and it's not gonna change unless they start approaching business and football in a different way. To sum their season up and to paint a better perspective, they were eliminated by Marseille from the French Cup, finished second in the Champions League group behind Benfica, before being eliminated by Bayern, a club in crisis themselves, and at the time I'm making this, they still haven't won the league, losing 6 times in Ligue 1. What do you think is coming next for the Parisians? A rebuild or the complete downfall? And number 1, obviously, Chelsea. 2 years ago the Blues were celebrating their second Champions League triumph against Man City. Now 2 years later, after a lot of change in their structure, they will now finish this Premier League season at the bottom half of the table. Even though they've spent over €674 million this season alone. But that's a thing that Todd Bowley needs to understand. This isn't fantasy football, let alone American football. You can't just buy a bunch of stars and expect them to perform as a unit. Every transfer needs to be well thought out and made in order to improve a team, not because you want all the new and shiniest toys. I mean, they literally have 10 forwards and they still can't find a way to get a positive goal difference. I'm really curious to see what will happen next year, because this season, if it wasn't for the somewhat decent start to the Premier League, Chelsea would go down, and I wish I was exaggerating. And that's the video. Did you agree with my selections? Let me know your opinion in the comments and let's have a discussion. Subscribe to the channel to watch more content like this, and don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, of course. I'll catch you on the next one.